How aware are you guys of the fans who are absolutely positive that this is a love story between Deborah and Ava?
It actually makes me think that it's really good that we had done the sex dream in season 1 before the show came out.
Yeah.
But like, it's always been in the DNA of the show.
Thank you all for being here. I wanted to start at the very end of the finale.
I also realized that it would be really, really bad if people found out that you slept with the chairman of this company right before he gave you your own show. So I think I am your head writer after all.
Did you begin writing season 3 knowing that Ava would blackmail Deborah to get the head writer job?
We had to sleep every night knowing that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Some sleepless nights.
I was going to say we tossed, we turned, but we knew it had to happen.
But yeah, when we start a season, we have like a tent poles of where we're going. And certainly always it's most important to know what the end is so you know what you're building towards. And so we always knew that that's what it would be.
Did you see it coming?
No. Where do you feel like they are in that final moment when they're staring at each other?
I think there's a lot of feelings. I think for Ava, I think she's surprisingly comfortable with it. I think she feels like it's her coming into her, not final form, but for her to realize, I think, the potential that maybe Deborah always saw in her. And whether or not fulfilling that potential is good for her long term or not, I think that is one of the bigger questions that we'll be exploring. As for Deborah, I think she's really mad. And a little bit proud.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, she hires her because she's like a worthy opponent, and she's not backing down. Ava keeps sort of leveling up. Also, Ava thinks it's benevolent. She's like, I am doing this for your own good. And I think that's part of the reason why Ava's very comfortable in doing it, and she knows she needs to.
Yeah. We end season 3. Now they are facing off and they are at a point in their relationship they've never quite been at before, where they're both so mad and angry at each other. And there's been this betrayal, and yet they are handcuffed together, having to do the greatest challenge of both of their lives professionally. And so now it's like, how can they make this work while being at odds with each other personally?
Were you laying the groundwork for this massive power reversal?
We tried to keep it in mind, not just in terms of their dynamic, but also in terms of what we did visually with the show. I mean, we opened the season a statue of Julius Caesar following behind Deborah's back. So it was like we were leaving breadcrumbs for the people that watched 3, 4, or 5 times.
Wait, what's another breadcrumb?
DJ, after the roast, says to her mom, like, you're an addict just like me. Addicts always hurt the ones we love. And that was also a suggestion that Deborah, in the end, would retract the offer for the late night head writer job.
In the penultimate episode, they're at a frat house and they're fighting.
I can't be woke. I'm exhausted.
Okay, I know this feels like the end of the world, but it really isn't.
Ava's advocating for Deborah to apologize for a joke, and she said, you think that right and wrong is really clear, but it's never that clear. And one day you'll understand that.
Don't you lecture me. I was canceled before there was even a name for it. You only give it a name after it started happening to powerful men.
Marcus is about to quit. There was a scene where he actually gave notice to Deborah, but it's not in the finale. Why did you not include that?
We try and keep the episodes as close to 30 minutes as we can. So sometimes it's a length thing, but also for us, we felt like there was a lot of resolutions. I mean, Kathy, her sister, and her have sort of their big final conversation. Obviously, Ava and Deborah have this really big throwdown. Jimmy and Kayla have a new level to their relationship. There were a lot of bows that were kind of wrapping things up. And so we thought that might be one fun kind of cliffhanger to leave for us to play with next season.
Especially if the news of Marcus leaving comes on the heels of after Ava's, let's say, blackmail, betrayal. Yeah. It felt like that would be landing on Deborah in a very different way. It felt storytelling-wise like it would be something that'd be more interesting to explore a little farther down the road for Deborah.
So the door is closed on Kathy? We won't?
No. I mean, there's no promise that she would come back, but we have talked about different ways that we potentially could bring her back, partly because we love Jason with Cameron. It's just such a perfect Kathy for us. And they were so naturally sibling-like in a really cool way. But also, even though I think Kathy feels very at peace with the relationship, doesn't mean Deborah is, and doesn't mean DJ is, and doesn't mean that other ties that bind them together couldn't possibly bring them back.
Right. Can you talk about casting J. Smith Cameron?
Yeah, I mean, we were all such massive fans of hers, her entire body of work, and then of course most recently Succession, and so they look similar. It like when you see it, you're like, yes, this makes sense for siblings. And then Jay and Jean fell into this like incredibly sibling-like dynamic right away on set that was like really special and fun to see. Like when they have that snowball fight.
Oh, that's expensive snow!
Oh my God. It feels like they're sisters. And so we were so thrilled that Jay wanted to do it. And then when she got there and on set and started doing scenes with Jean, it was just really, really special.
Ow! Ow, it burns! Why does it burn? Shit! Chemicals! It's methylene chloride! Then why would you throw it at me? You started out!
You know, we offered her the part at a party.
No.
Twice, actually, two different parties.
Say more.
We were at an HBO Emmys party,
Yeah.
and we'd already been talking for a long time about how we wanted her to play it. And so we just went up to her and we're like, "Hey, we make this show Hacks. Like, do you ever want to be on it?" And she's like, "Sure." And we're like, "Okay, you play this. She's like, "I'm kind of busy, honey." Whatever. We're like, "We're gonna, you know what? We're gonna see you at another party. We're gonna do it again." And then we saw it at another party, and we're like, "It's us again. We're gonna get a little more into the details here. Here's the part. Here's kind of the idea." And she's like, "Okay."
She was like, I'm in.
She's like,
like,
I'm
I'll
still
do
at
it.
a party though.
Yeah. But she said, I'd love to do it. And so it's not the first time that we've done that, cast people. Actually,
Catherine Newton in
Yes.
the finale.
Oh, really?
who
Yeah.
plays
Yeah.
Kayla's
Yeah.
kind of high school bully, same thing at a party we saw.
We saw her and she was really complimentary about the show. And we were like, well, there actually is a part you'd be great for. Would you ever do it? And she was like, no, yeah. She's like, this is my agent. So it was kind of like,
We made the offer right there.
yeah, you know, the producer
So
hat
great.
was on with the tux. You know?
Beyond meeting people at parties and offering them the roles, what is your approach to guest casting? Because the show really excels in the guest cast. Deirdre Hall is Jimmy's mom. How did that happen?
Well, we were talking about Jimmy being sort of the son of this person who owned a management company, and his father probably had 3 or 4 marriages. And we thought, okay, Jimmy's mom could be an actress. That makes sense. And then somehow the muse like visited the room. We were like, what about Deirdre Hall? And everyone said, yes. That is it.
Felt instantly right.
The discussion stopped. And, of course, it's actually, I think, tricky to get people to play themselves because it's sort of like they're playing a version of themselves. Right. It's not them. But so that can be tricky. But I had a phone call with Deirdre and we talked about it and she said, I'm in. So, and it was actually great because I think she really likes comedy and obviously hasn't done a ton of comedy. So I think she was really happy to play with us.
She was so great.
She was really great.
Helen Hunt. I mean,
Christina
you had so
Hendricks.
many
Christopher
scenes.
Lloyd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Christina Hendricks.
Yep.
Yeah.
As a evil lesbian Republican golfer.
With a piss king.
Yes.
Everything is so problematic these days. What are you gonna lecture me on inclusivity? Tell me how I can't fund fracking?
Fracking? Are you a Republican?
Obviously.
Oh my God.
We all come to a varying degree from a performance background, and so we love writing for actors. We love actors, and we often think of people in the role that helps us with their dialogue and sort of shaping the character. We've been lucky that a lot of those people have said yes to play the parts. So,
I mean, Laurie Metcalf from season 2 as Weed is like, we could have done a
spinoff.
A spinoff, honestly. So it's like
Weed on wheels. Yeah.
So the only hard thing sometimes is being like, we know you are so talented that we could dedicate a whole episode to you, but like this is the part. And so we're kind of like, no worries if you don't want to do it. So whenever they are willing to do it, we are like so grateful because, it's just a great spice to throw over an episode, a season, a series.
How aware are you guys of the fans who are absolutely positive that this is a love story between Deborah and Ava? Do you write to that at all?
We are aware. I get a comment, make them a couple on almost anything I post. So we do see it, you know?
It actually makes me think that it's really good that we had done the sex dream in season 1 before the show came out. Because then it would have, had we done it after kind of that fan base kind of was feeling that way, then it would have seemed like we were pandering. But like it's always been in the DNA of the show since the beginning. It is a love story, and there's none of us are going to argue with that. I mean, in terms of whether it's like an explicitly sexual story, I think it's like so easy to see a love story and be like, well, where's the sex part? Especially in a relationship that maybe an older woman, a younger woman that hasn't been explored as much on television. So we're definitely aware of it, and it makes total sense in so many ways. As for, that's not necessarily how we initially pitched the story.
Yeah. I
No.
think it's also like we've been thinking about these characters and their dynamic and their relationship and crafting it since 2015. And we had 4 years before we pitched it of talking about what the dynamic is and what it was. And so I think it would be not a great idea to write towards what other people were saying anyway, but it's already like so, I think, in our brains and in our heads what their relationship is and where we want to go. But that being said, like, the fact that people respond to it and want to write things and it's inspiring is incredibly amazing to us. And like Lucia said, it's a love story. It is a love story, period. And there's all different ways love stories can look.
Backing up, this season was not easy to make. Jean Smart had heart surgery. What was your experience of this?
I mean, we were very worried, but we're all very close, and so we tried to be as there for her as we could be. It's so bizarre. My mom broke her ankle the same week that she went to Cedars, so I was there. So I was like, Jean, I'm at Cedars, and so I was with her for a good amount of time. But she is so tough. I mean, Hannah has said this, but she is titanium. And she was like, great, let's do it, and then I'll come back next week. She was so concerned about the crew and about the show, and it was sort of like, well, let's concentrate on your health and just worry about that. But she's someone who's so dedicated to her work and also to her family, which is, the cast and the crew. We all become very much a family. So she really, I think that was really her biggest concern was the break we would have to all take. But, everybody was there for her, and most of the crew, I would say, all of the crew waited till she got back, didn't take other jobs. They wanted to be there for her. So it was really kind of powerful reunion.
Did the strikes end up being the break she needed and never would have taken to recover as well as she could?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that she is somebody who is at this really incredible place in her career where she is being offered amazing movies and things in between shooting. And I think part of her wants to take advantage of that because there are these really rich, delicious parts. But I think she also, just had this kind of health scare. And so, yeah, I think you're right that she probably wouldn't have taken that time off. Even her rest isn't true rest.
She was out on the picket lines.
Oh, yeah.
It's
she was
98
with us.
degrees
yeah.
out here.
Many times, a bunch. She was out there a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. So no one is ever going to stop her.
And when the strikes ended, how far had you gotten?
Yeah.
Halfway, a little more than half.
We had shot about 40% before her health scare, another 5-10%, and then last 50 something.
So when did you actually finish production? on season
late
four?
February.
End of January 2024,
Oh, okay.
yeah. It basically, on one of the last days of shooting, I looked and we had been shooting season 3 for a full 420 days or something.
Not every day.
Not every day. Not every day. Some strikes and breaks
That
in
would have
between.
been
but,
beautiful.
Great season.
A lot of coverage.
Megalopolis.
Yeah.
But what's so funny is we shot the Vegas stuff at the very end. So the very first shot with the drone shot that gets caught and gone through, that was our very last shot that we shot of the whole season, and it was our first one in the episode.
And you know what? Actually, it was so crazy. The very first shot we did coming back from the double strikes and Jean's surgery was the last scene with Ava and
yes.
Deborah
in the
in
office.
Bulletproof in the finale.
Yes, in
That was the
Bulletproof.
first thing we came back to, which is such an intense scene.
Yeah.
You said you needed me.
I do, but not to be my head writer.
Well, what about what I need?
What you need is to take the win of being on the staff and be happy.
Happy with a demotion?
It was a bizarre way to start, but it honestly was really, I mean, I think it charged that scene.
Right, there was
Yeah,
some
we were all
nervous Twitter tension.
In terms of the arc of the season, was that the plan from the start, from years ago, that season 3 would be about her trying to do this?
We actually pitched each season in our pitch, including we pitched the last scene of this finale in our pitch. So we very much have known this whole time, especially because, like Jen said, we've been working on this since 2015. It gave us so much time to really know exactly what each season was.
Was she always going to get the job?
No, she
was always going to get it.
always going to get
There's always, obviously it's very one step forward, 2 step back in general on this show, but I think one of the things we initially said when we pitched the show is this is a story of redemption. Yeah. And so for us, planting in this idea of this white whale for her and then her ultimately getting it, obviously at what cost will be something that'll be explored. But that was always part of her kind of public redemption.
Considering that Deborah is never satisfied, where does that leave her at the end of the season?
Well, I think that's exactly the thing we want to explore is like for such a driven person like Deborah who always has to keep going and going, when you get this dream, it's like, oh my gosh, I did it. But then I think a thing sets in, especially for creatives in this industry, there's all these things, benchmarks that you're like, well, if I ever hit that, if I ever get that, if I ever get that. But it doesn't always come with the satisfaction that you think it will. And then you have to actually day in, day out do the job. So I think what we're excited to explore is how does she emotionally feel getting this thing? Can she enjoy it? Is the reality of it much different than perhaps she imagined for 40 years that she's been wanting this?
What are your conversations like with Jean Smart? Does she leave it to you all?
She really leaves it to us. I mean, she does sometimes have like, she's like, you know what would be funny? You know, every once in a while there'll be a scene that she will think about, but no, she really leaves, not only does she leave it to us, but she and Hannah do this thing where they want to read it as it comes out. So they read each script in order. It's as if they're living it. I mean, I think it's an interesting way to work, that it's as if they're living through the eyes of the character. But Jean, you know, being someone who comes from theater, she's so committed to the text and she is so deferential to the writing that she really does leave it to us.
How has Hannah Einbinder worked to deepen the Ava character?
It's been so rewarding to watch Hannah blossom as she has, as the character kind of has too. I think she really is just such a deeply empathetic, beautiful person, really, like Hannah is. And I think she's lent that to the character of Ava. And I think even in just the way sometimes she looks at Deborah and the way that she looks at the world, it is with this like love and curiosity and empathy. But I think the goodness of Hannah at her core lends that like heart to Ava, and it makes sometimes some of her irredeemable qualities more redeemable. It's unbelievable how sometimes with so few words she shows you everything she's thinking. It's really
I wanted to ask about the Berkeley episode.
Okay, which minority group is upset?
I don't think minority is the proper term anymore.
What are they called?
No, don't say they.
Oh, I thought everybody was they now.
It's a different thing.
What made you want to do that episode in these troubled times?
We pitched that episode in the initial pitch, and it was something we always knew we wanted to explore, that someone like Deborah, because of the way context shifts and culture changes, comedy doesn't always age well. And so we knew that there must be material for someone like Deborah Vance that didn't necessarily age well. And so that was an episode that, honestly, I think we were a little bit intimidated to do, because to wrap your arms around all of it and to stick the landing, it's a very small target. So we considered it a lot, but it felt like this season, especially with the stakes of getting this job as a late night host and being close to it, the potential for some problematic material to resurface was like extra scary for the character. So we decided we had to do it.
Jimmy and Kayla also grew this season. You made Kayla not a joke and actually quite good at some things. Tell me about their journey in season 3. Jimmy.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, we always, and we tried to do this a little bit in season 2, but it was great that in season 3, their story was so enmeshed with Deborah's quest of getting late night that we were able to explore their relationship and them as characters more and learn more about how Kayla became this way and how Jimmy became this way. We meet Jimmy's mom, and it was really, really rewarding to get to have scenes with Meg that weren't just, you know, a comedic duo scene. So it felt very good to be able to deepen all the stuff that we've done. And in a way, it felt more hacks than it ever has before, because it was a story that was comedic. Obviously, there's a lot of hard comedy that Meg and I get to do, but we also got to do a little bit more dramatic work, which was really rewarding.
It's some of our favorite things to get to do is when you have two incredibly gifted comedic actors like Paul and Meg, and then you also know that they have like so many other gears that they can shift into, and to get to do that, for Paul to show that, for Meg to show that as we deepen their characters and had some more emotional stuff is like very rewarding. It's very like embodies the tone of the show that we love to do. And so it's very satisfying to get to do that with all of the characters, like with Paul and Meg.
What's the three of your writing process? Do you guys have like rituals and things you do when it's the three of you doing it together?
No, we should get a ritual.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, not
I wish we had
really,
a really
yeah.
colorful
When,
response.
I mean, when we write an episode together, we usually break it up by
Yeah.
acts. So like, he'll take an act, I'll take an act, she'll take an act, and then we'll
3-act
go
structure is helpful.
Yeah.
Showrunners.
But they're all really, really broken by the time we get there because
Yeah.
we spend so much time outlining and breaking and writing sample dialogue and jokes. So,
Yeah.
and all of that is very collaborative, not just with us, but with our writer's room.
But it gives us an opportunity in our actual drafts to try to surprise the other people with new jokes. And that's really like the part of it that feels the most like naturally organic, exciting part of it, you know, because it's like, I know exactly who my audience is, it's them. And I just want to make them laugh in my draft. It might get rewritten, whatever, but then like, I don't know, being in that mindset kind of really like brings the flow on. And also we don't usually omit or cut whole scenes. I know we did in the finale, like we talked about with Marcus, but generally we don't really do that. Usually it's only the very first episode sometimes because you're like really trying to be like, how do we bring in all this information? And maybe sometimes in the last episode, but weirdly in the middle, we don't really omit very much at all.
What is your favorite scene or moment or joke from this season?
I'm biased because I was in it, but the airplane scene.
I was going to say the airplane scene.
Airplane scene is my favorite scene.
It's so fun for us because it gets to play with this rom-com trope of running onto an airplane, but it's not romantic.
So please, stay here with me and be my partner.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were a man. They're gay.
What? I am a man.
But you said partner.
Leave us alone!
That one is fun because it gets to like really, I think, do the tone we love to do, which is like really hard, funny moments. Like, you know, this woman yelling, "Oh, I didn't know you're a man." What was it? Oh, I didn't know you were gay. Yeah.
I thought,
You said partner.
Yeah, you said partner. Oh, they're gay. So funny, but
leave
also-
us alone!
Exactly. The leave us alone is so funny. But it also gets to be like this real thing where he's like, I genuinely now understand your worth and how good you are, and I want you to be a manager. And like, I think it's like a version where like it gets to be really big comedy, but really big drama, not drama, but like real moment.
Heartfelt, yeah.
Yeah, heartfelt.
Yeah.
And so that's one that I do point to as a mixed tone that we like.
I have two answers, a dramatic one and a comedic one. Comedic one is in episode 304 when Jimmy is pitching Ava on all the different open writing assignments.
So they've done some market research and they found that Gen Z thinks the animated spoon from Beauty and the Beast is hot and apparently can get it. So they want something that focuses on his love life. Okay.
Give me another one.
No spoon.
That is one of my all-time favorite scenes we've ever done. And Paul has some of my favorite line reads in the history of the show in that one. No spoon. So comedically, I love that scene. It's obviously very inside baseball, so holds a place dear in my heart. And then I think dramatically, the scene in Bulletproof, the finale between Deborah and Ava in the living room is like one of my favorite we've ever done. And I think Hannah blew everyone away on the day.
God, you are so selfish. Yes, I am. You have to be selfish.
Well, I don't want to be.
It was just so incredible. Jean is so incredible. Like that scene is really special.
I've never actually had this before, but I've never been in the edit and felt so as if I was in the scene. Like even editing it, even like the rougher cuts, I was just like,
Yeah.
like with bated breath because it just was so intense. And it's like, Hannah spilled her entire guts and heart out, you know, like she took everything. And then you also see in the end the way she has to turn and start to like realize things about Deborah, realize things about herself, and kind of like, you know, hits her with the like, you think you're only lonely when you drink a bottle of champagne.
Bullshit, you're lonely all the fucking time. You're gonna die that way too.
It's like such a verdict on how she feels about Deborah. And I think Jean does such an amazing job, that whole scene of wanting to be open and real and honest and perhaps even loving back, but she has to put up such a wall. And I think Jean does an amazing job of holding the wall when you know the character doesn't want to. Right. And that's, I think, it's really subtle, but it's really powerful, and it gave Hannah so much to play off of. I mean, two masters at work, honestly.
They're so good in the scene that the plane scene was after it, and it was hard to laugh. We had to move it. We put it
Yeah.
before that scene because once you're there, you're on a frequency and you're really like there's so much momentum to the end that we thought, okay, we need to truncate what's happening at the end. So that was an example of rewriting it in the edit.
Yeah, we've never done that before. Had to fully it was the biggest reorder we've ever done, but it was like Paul and Meg were too funny. Jean and Hannah were too dramatically compelling and like honestly heartbreaking that you couldn't laugh. It was just too hard comedy afterwards. So we fully flipped it, put the plane scene first, the Jimmy Ava scene, which was so lovely within Jimmy's new office, that used to come, we had to like change the ending of that to make it work. It was a whole like kind of the most reordering and restructuring we've ever done because of the like 4 very powerful in different ways performances in that episode.
When was the Jimmy Ava scene going to go?
Right before the plane. So she was going to say, hey, great job. She wouldn't have gotten late night without you. And Jimmy says, well, I didn't do it alone, and is thinking about the impact Kayla had on this whole story for the season, and then goes to the plane. And then at the end of that scene, when he gets her to say, yes, she'll stay, and everyone claps because they got married, or they're engaged, when they're about to leave, the attendant says, we've shut the doors, we're pulling back. So they were going to be in Greece. He has no suitcase. His car's in a loading dock, but that changed too. So, that was
I
the one.
was concerned that they weren't going to make it off the plane.
Yeah.
It was written
Just
that
so
they
you
were.
know,
You were
writer's
right.
truth,
That was
they
right.
don't.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
Thanks for having
I
us.
knew it would be fun. And
This was
it
fun.
was for me.
Great, it was for us, yeah.
Thank you so much.